Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is our supporter, our great supporter, Mike Schwager, who is a media consultant and advisor to nonprofits and others who are trying to get the best coverage they can through the media. Great PR pro with a long history. Mike, welcome to the show.
So you've got the new me with glasses on like you. I wanna emulate you, my friend.
Well, thank you. I'm flattered. Well, Mike, I'm excited to talk to you today because today we're going to really dig deep into some of your expertise, your core central expertise to help people figure out how to pitch their stories to the media. And this is just so important. I can tell you as one who is the media, the pitch is huge. You know, I get 300 pitches a week. And it's really tough to get my attention. And I'm sure there are people out there that are receiving many, many more pitches than I'm receiving. So your insights here are going to be very, very important. So ahead of time, you gave me just a quick outline of what those tips are. And I included that in the story at Your Mark on the World. But your first tip was be persuasive. Tell us a little bit about how to be persuasive.
Well, first of all, Devin, can I backtrack just slightly?
Backtrack.
And because I may be talking to new PR people who are just starting out in publicity and booking the media, and also to public relations agencies or corporate communications departments. But mainly for the agencies, I want to say, when you decide on a client that you want to represent, I think this is important. Make sure that the products and services are ethical, and make sure that they're of benefit, minimally of some benefit. And when you check them out, make sure you treat their people well. You know, I used to represent a client, a terrific fellow by the name of Dr. Cleve Stevens, and he wrote a book called The Best in Us. And what that was about was his advocacy of the notion that it should be people above profits. When you treat your people with the maximum, as if they could fulfill their maximum potentiality, and you help them do that, guess what happens to profits? They soar. So I just wanted to say that searching for the right client, you need to feel good about the clients you represent. You need to feel good about the services and products you represent. And the other thing is, my suggestion is make sure that they have some community consciousness. They're doing some good in the communities where they do their work, whether it's local or international, and they support worthwhile charities. That's going to give you a client that you can be proud of and that you can pitch with enthusiasm. So I just wanted to preface this whole conversation with that.
Great tip.
Now, you asked me the question about, what was that question?
Persuasive. How do we be persuasive?
Okay, well, first, a lot of these are common sense, Devin, you know, but tell the truth. If you're talking to an editor or a producer, don't fudge. Tell the truth. Now, you can tell the truth creatively by finding an appropriate angle, which we'll talk about a little later, but tell the truth. Make sure the product or service does what it says it does. Never imagine or fudge the answer to Devin Thorpe's question. Remember that candor equals credibility. And if the organization you represent has taken an action that has reaped negative consequences, counsel your client to admit the mistake, unless they're prevented from doing so by legal counsel. So some of those things are very, very important. Second, know your outlet before you pitch or you call. Make sure you read the magazine, the newspaper, listen to the radio show, listen to the TV show, and if you haven't done that yet, before you start pitching, make sure you have a basic idea of what the themes are and that you are going to pitch appropriately. And the other thing is What is your attitude going to be? Okay, so make with attitude. There are PR people whose emotional lives. I remember when I first started out, I was so nervous to make my first call to a producer. There are PR people whose emotional lives seem to count on a yes or a no from a journalist, from a producer, from an editor. Release all of that. Absolutely release all of that. And two things. First, I learned this from Louise Hay. I represented Louise Hay, the great metaphysical teacher and counselor, with her book, You Can Heal Your Life. And one of the first things she said to me, remember, the point of power is always in the present moment. So forget about the past, forget about the future, forget about the outcome, and be with yourself and the person you're pitching to, and be strong in your awareness of the story and pitch that story with fervor. And unattachment doesn't mean detachment or apathy. It simply means not worrying about the response. And you know, what does that do? It frees you up. It frees you up from fear, it frees you up from worry, and it makes you more powerful in the present moment. So those are just a few of the...
Those are great insights, Mike. I really appreciate you sharing. Those are great tips. I especially appreciate the tip to know your outlet before you pitch them, because if you can't make that genuine connection, I know your pitch will be ignored, right? You've got to be able to explain why the story you're pitching relates to the editors or reporters or producers beat. So, well, let's talk about step 2. I think your step 2 or tip 2 is to be creative. Tell us how to be creative when we're pitching the media.
Well, there's some very simple things. First, use news to make news. And so when you prepare a news release or a pitch letter, keep the following editorial criteria in mind. And by the way, I learned this when I was in the newsroom at CBS Network Radio News. It's basically the criteria that most newsrooms follow. The first is relevance. Is your story relevant? You know, how valid and appropriate is this story? The second is impact. That's one of your favorite words, impact.
Yeah.
Does this story affect a large number of people or a significant demographic? The third is timeliness. That's obvious. Is the story timely? Is it happening now, not a year ago or not next year? And then novelty. Does the story have a bit of an unusual twist to it, something a little bit novel? If you've got those 4 criteria down, you've got a powerhouse story to pitch to a journalist. Secondly, very often seasonal tie-ins. Seasonal tie-ins make a lot of sense. So news editors are always looking for feature stories that tie in with a holiday or seasonal happenings. And I remember a very successful campaign I had for Pitney Bowes. You know that company, Pitney Bowes?
Oh, sure.
Manufacturer of electronic stamps. Well, we prepared a major campaign for Pitney Bowes before the Christmas season, actually before Thanksgiving. And I think it was 8 weeks before Christmas, we convinced the manufacturer to designate a holiday consumer specialist who could talk about anything you wanted to know about mailing gifts for the holidays. It wasn't just about the stamps. And we booked this specialist on dozens and dozens of top all-news radio stations. And that's something else I want to say. Be aware of the gamut of media that you can approach. It doesn't always have to be the Today Show. It doesn't always have to be Good Morning America. You know, if you book a solid news story, 4 or 5 minute news story with an all-news radio station in 30 markets around the country, you know what the collective power of that is in terms of promotion and depth penetration. It's significant. There was another story about a client. This is sort of a seasonal tie-in. Armstrong World Industries. Armstrong World Industries had developed a draft sealer. You know, the electrical outlets on the wall, a lot of people didn't realize, and maybe still don't, that lots of cold air comes into the house through that electrical outlet. Well, they developed a draft sealer that prevents the cold air from coming in and keeps the hot air in the house staying in. Well, that story just before the onset of winter was powerful. And we not only had it on the Today Show, we had it on major talk shows all over the country. And you know what happened to that product? It sold out. Without advertising, I might add.
Wow.
So that was being aware of a powerful seasonal kind of tie-in with application to a product. And then third, products are newsworthy when they are evolutionary or revolutionary. I remember the comedian Danny Kaye, Devin, the great Danny Kaye. Well, his daughter, Dina, had just come out with a book called The Traveling Woman. I was aware of that. And Polaroid came to me with a new camera that was an instant, not instant photographs, instant slide processor. I thought that was, if not revolutionary, evolutionary in photography. And so I remember Dina's book. We asked her if she could be a spokesperson for Polaroid. And actually, the name of her book was The Traveling Woman, Tips for Women Traveling Alone. And we asked her to add that one tip, bring along your new Polaroid slide processor. And the book sold out in many, many markets. So those are some of the creative formatting tips. And we can go into the next category if you wish.
Yeah. So your next tip was to humanize your on-air appearance. How do you do that? How do you come across authentic and human?
People don't want to hear cold statistics or facts. They want to feel your humanness. They want to feel their own humanness. And so use statistics sparingly, only to emphasize the strength of the points that you're making. Make more use of anecdotes. Tell a story. Make the story human. And if you're illustrating the work of your company, talk about people, about your customers, about your employees, and cite examples. And let the audience know about your work within the community, about charities you and your company support, and why you support them. So humanize yourself and your organization. Now, remember, the second is a smile is worth 1,000 words. It really is. And some of these cliches tell the truth. But also, it may be subtle, but when you're sitting in an in-studio interview, Devin, with the reporter, with the host of the show, use that person's first name occasionally. You develop an empathic chord with the audience more than with the person that you're talking to. Remember Anwar Sadat, the great Egyptian president? Devin, you remember Anwar Sadat?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Well, you know how he became very popular amongst American people. It was the simple technique of calling Barbara Walters Barbara or Walter Cronkite Walter. He immediately became likable. And so that had great power. Now, when I worked in the CBS network radio newsroom, one day I found myself in the men's room. And who's washing his face in front of the mirror? Walter Cronkite is washing his face. It was the first time that I saw Walter in person, and I was a bit terrified. I was just a young fellow back then and without any experience, but I swallowed my pride and I said to him, Mr. Cronkite, what makes you so successful, do you think? And his answer was completely disarming. He said, well, son, I'm going to tell you something I haven't told others. When I look at the camera, I think of my dear grandmother. I loved her so much. Well, think of someone, this is counsel you give to your client who's going to appear on a talk show. Think of someone you love or respect, and that love energy will transmit unknowingly to the audience and to the person that you're talking to. So those are several tips.
What a fascinating tip. Fascinating tip, Mike. I really appreciate you taking the time to share these insights. I know you've been training.
Are you talking to your grandmother right now, Devin?
Yes, I'm thinking of my dear grandmother. But thank you very much for taking the time.
My pleasure.
With us. We really appreciate it. Now, before you go, tell people how they can connect with you, how they find you, how they track you down.
Well, first of all, I have two websites in PR. One is mediamavens.com and the other is tvtraining.tv. They can call me. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 954-423-4414. Doesn't cost a dime to call me. We can, as we say in New York, schmooze a little bit, and I'll be happy to give you my thoughts as to whether I can help you, and give you some ideas as well. And they can email me, M.O. Schwager, which would also be Mo Schwager, M. Michael, O. Oscar, SCHWAGER. So it's one word, Mo Schwager at AOL.com.
Fantastic. Well, again, Mike, we thank you very much for being
My pleasure.
here and wish you every success in the great work that you're doing.
And the same to you. Thanks very much.
All right. Let's do some good.